All right. So good morning. How you guys doing?
It's not crazy traffic right now.
Crazy traffic, getting ready for floods. Aren't you glad you're here?
Yes, there.
They're out there struggling.
At least it doesn't make me feel like I'm missing out on something when it's like this.
There you go.
Friday's gonna be tough
Why?
tomorrow. Every Friday, you know? They're here, yeah.
You get out of here, it's like,
Yeah, it's a perfect time to just back.
and you got until Monday.
I don't know.
All right. So before we get started, do you guys have any questions regarding the previous chapters? Any at all?
More than I can think of.
None that you can think of? Okay. Anybody? No? All right, cool. So we're going to go to chapter 4. We're going to try to cover, yes?
Do you have an extra highlight?
Yes, I do. Questions regarding chapters?
He's a rental fee.
Yeah. It's $50 rental.
I'll do like 10 cents an hour. Yeah.
Come on, we're in America. It's got to go big, you know? That's it.
Thank you.
All right, so you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to focus on the chapters today? Yes? So we're going to try to do today's chapter 4 and 5. I'm going to try to speed up as much as I can without missing information, right? But I want to make sure we catch up because I was trying to do 4 and 5 yesterday.
Oh, wow.
All right? Yes. So
Which
we're
one to do 4 or 5 yesterday?
yes. So we should have finished 3 the day before. But it's okay. So I'm just letting you guys know. I'm going to try to do the best I can to cover these chapters and still be on time.
We're still finishing all
Should
the
I go
time.
to a movie?
This is a
Like
movie.
popcorn. Like,
This is a movie.
all right. You're going to be able to hear me? Okay.
Turn the lights off.
Feel better. All right, so we're going to start with fair housing. Can anybody tell me what fair housing is before we move forward? What do you think fair housing is?
When they live the system,
Equal housing? You say?
when they live that system, like Section 8 and stuff.
Okay, Section 8 is part of it, but okay, what does that mean? Equal for everybody?
Yeah, civil rights and non-discrimination.
It has to do civil rights, discrimination, all that stuff. So as a property manager, you should definitely know that stuff, right? Okay, cool. So fair housing is everybody's entitled to live in a house, to rent or buy a house. Does that make sense? Regardless of their gender, color, race, age, familial status, and a bunch of other stuff that we're going to go over in this chapter. This, to me, is one of the most important chapters because, unfortunately, we have a few people out there, realtors, that they look at you and be like, okay, this is not going to work. I can't work with somebody like you. Does that make sense? In their mind, I'm not saying that they say that to you. I don't think you're going to have one of those that will say something to you like that, but it does happen. All right? Even though there's no discrimination in politics yet, there should be, because it does happen as well. If somebody says, oh, I'm from the Republican Party or Democratic Party or whatever, and people are like, okay, that's it. The house falls down and everything, you know, families apart. It's like politics gets involved. So it should be added to this. But fortunately, we're not going to talk about politics, but we are going to involve religion, race, color, gender, and a bunch of other stuff, including disabilities. Okay? So let me ask you something. Would you discriminate?
Would we discriminate?
Yeah.
No.
Is there anybody here that would discriminate?
No, why? We do it unconsciously, come on.
Yeah, that's one thing we're gonna go over in a little bit. Sometimes we do it unconsciously. All right, we look at people and we assume or presume certain things. All right, so before we move forward, I want you guys to look left, look right, look at the array of people we have here, the different types of people, right? And it's funny because we hear in different cultures, right? And we hear joined in something common, without fights, without arguments, without anything. All right? So vote for me for 2020. But the point is, if we can be here without any argument, then why can't we just live our lives like that too, you know? So, as a realtor, I don't care about your personal opinion once you become a licensed salesperson. And this is very important because you shouldn't care about your personal opinion once you become a licensed salesperson as well. And if that's something that's going to affect your mind, then you shouldn't move forward in getting licensed. And I am telling you this because it says right here on the right hand side, as a potential licensee, a student of real estate must be aware of illegal and discriminating housing practices in order to avoid them. Look what it says right after that I want you to highlight, underline, put stars, put bubbles, put arrows, whatever you got to put. It says, failure to comply with fair housing practices is not only grounds for license revocation, so that's the least of your worries, but it's also a criminal act. So if you want to discriminate, that is a crime. And if there's a crime, what could happen to you? There's potential jail time besides the fines. I mean, jail, you're good because, you know, don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
But having to pay the fines and go to jail, now that's too much, right? Okay. So we're going to go to the basis of everything. And with that being said, remember, this is not just housing. This is in general. So whether you get this course or not, you can still get sued based on what I'm about to tell you. Once you're licensed, then definitely no excuse. Not licensed, still no excuse. Clear? Awesome.
I remember this chapter.
So, yeah, we're going to start with the Civil Rights Act of 1866. I want you to highlight 1866 only because in the state exam, they're not going to, there's no other 1866. So every time you see 1866, you got to know exactly what it means.
Race color.
Race and color. So it says right here, this law prohibits any type of discrimination based on race and color. Highlight, underline, put stars. Every time you see 1866, you got to remember race and color. Period. Nothing else to remember here. Okay? I'm going to skip all that stuff that's written there, but 1866, which is the Civil Rights Act, race and color. Go to the next page. So we're on page 51. And the last thing on this section of 1866, bless you. The last thing on this section of 1866 is no exceptions are allowed to this federal law. No exceptions are allowed to this federal law. Put arrows, put bubbles, underline, put stars, whatever you want to put, but you gotta remember, 1866, race and color, no exceptions at all to this law. Okay? Next we have Federal Fair Housing Act of 1968. Another date to remember because there's no other 1968 in the book. Okay? So remember 1968. And what happened in 1968 is they added some amendments to the original act. Okay? And what did they add? It says here, this law provides that it is unlawful to discriminate on the basis of race, color, religion, or national origin. So it doesn't matter where you came from, which country, we can't discriminate against you. It doesn't matter which religion you have, we can't discriminate against you. Race or color. Okay? When selling or leasing residential property. So this is federal law. I want you guys to remember there's federal laws and there's state laws. Under federal law, it only applies to residential. Okay? So if you're dealing with commercial property, according to federal law, you can discriminate because there's no exemption.
Wait,
Okay.
go back again?
You want me to rewind?
Repeat that again?
So, residential, federal. Under federal law, you cannot discriminate on the leasing or sale of residential. Okay? If it's commercial, there's nothing about that. So can you discriminate in commercial?
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't. The question was can you? You shouldn't because
It could
we
happen.
go back to moral standards, ethics, right? All right. Now, the Federal Fair Housing Act covers dwellings and apartments as well as vacant land acquired for the construction of residential buildings and prohibits the following discriminatory acts. This is common sense, so I'm not going to go over all of them. But here's what you shouldn't do when you're dealing with somebody. You cannot refuse to sell, rent, or negotiate to any person, or otherwise make any dwelling unavailable to any person, obviously on the basis of race, color, or religion. Changing terms or condition. Oh, you're from a different religion? Then you know what? It's a little bit higher for you. The price is higher, because we never know, right? So that's what it says. Changing terms. Next, practicing discrimination, and so on. So just bless you. Just mark all the bullet points and go all the way up top. So you cannot discriminate at all, right? Pleasure. You cannot discriminate at all, right? Every rule has an exception or exemption. Every rule has an exception or exemption. Now here it goes. Huh? Where we are on the top, right? So it says right here, exemptions to the Federal Fair Housing Act are: the sale or rental of a single-family home is exempted when the home is owned by an individual who does not own more than 3 such homes at one time, and when the broker, salesperson, or agent is not used, and discriminatory advertising is not used. So what we're saying here, we're saying that you own a single-family home, you can discriminate. You own 2 single-family homes, you can discriminate. You own 3 single-family homes, it's still okay to discriminate, but if you own 4 or more, now come on, it's enough. Right? That's what federal law says. As long as you do not own more than 3 single-family homes, and don't ask me, because I have no idea what they were thinking when they wrote this law.
But it contradicts. Like,
It doesn't contradict, it is what it is.
Can discriminate
Can.
after 4.
no.
No, up to
4.
3, so up to the 3rd property you own, you can discriminate. If you own 4 homes, single-family homes, at this point you cannot discriminate anymore. I know, confusing.
Not confusing, it's just kind of,
Dumb.
yeah.
Yes.
dumb.
So, with that being said, it says also, if you use a broker, a salesperson, or an agent, or you do any type of discriminatory advertising, then you could get in trouble. So if you're doing it for sale or for rent by owner, and you do not own more than 3 homes, it's okay. Okay? The moment you use an agent, or you do any type of discriminatory advertising, now you're in trouble. That's what it says. But there's more to this dumb law. If the owner is not living in the dwelling at the time of the transaction, or was not the most recent occupant, only one such sale by an individual is exempt from the law within any 24-month period. So what we're saying here is, you were not the most recent occupant, meaning you were not living there recently, and you're selling or renting the property to somebody else, right? As long as you don't use a broker, as long as you're not practicing any discriminatory advertising. The moment people walk into to see the property, you can say, Nope, not you. And it's okay. Within any 24-month period.
2 years.
So once every 2 years, you can discriminate. All right, who's happy? You should be relieved because at least there's a loophole for you to say, hey, not you.
I
Right?
don't think anybody even follows this.
Nobody follows it because they discriminate regardless. Because the question is, how do you know 2 years have passed? Anybody? How do you know 2 years have passed since you last discriminated?
Only if someone made a complaint.
Only if somebody made a complaint, because there's no app, there's no record. If nobody complains, then you just keep on doing it. Does that make sense? Yes? You guys like this law? This is federal, by the way.
I like the law, I don't like the exception.
Ah, very good. I like it. There's more. It says the rental of rooms or units is exempted in an owner-occupied 1 to 4 family dwelling. Exempted in an owner-occupied 1 to 4 family dwelling. So if you live there in the property, you can discriminate against who's going to live next to you, above you, or below you because you live there. Okay? Only owner-occupied 1 to 4 family. I'm going to show you New Jersey law in a little bit. It's a little bit different. But remember, federal law, 1 to 4 family, owner-occupied, it's okay to discriminate.
Why does it say one family?
Huh?
That's weird, that it says one family.
So when you say like,
Because you can rent rooms in certain areas.
Okay, yeah.
so like.
But it's sorry. You can rent the rooms according to whatever your municipality allows. Just saying.
Okay.
Okay, because you have to register. Sorry.
So when you say like, oh, you can discriminate someone like that moves next to you, what would be an example of that? Because
So,
like,
where,
oh, let's say like
where-
the
where you-
race, like
where are you
know,
from?
Dominican Republic.
I'm gonna go. I hate Dominicans. You know what? You're not living there.
Okay.
She said, okay.
That's it. Now, are you gonna go complain? Because I rejected you from living in my unit?
I don't care.
Because it's my house. I'm just saying, no Dominicans here. Are you gonna put a
But in
complaint?
your house, I thought you meant like the neighbor.
No.
Oh.
It's my 1 to 4 family home.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I live in one of the units, and I'm renting the other 2, 3 units. Got it? And I'm saying I don't want to rent to Dominicans. Simple. I didn't put an ad that says no Dominicans, but once you got there, I asked you where you're from.
And then it's okay, I'll call you, never come back.
Huh? Who's that?
And then you said, I'll call you, and then you never call me back, and I assumed that it was because of that.
Or I can tell you straight to your face, I don't want Dominicans. It's okay, I live there. It's my house, and there's an exemption.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Pretty cool.
I mean, I
Okay,
think
that's pretty cool, you said? Wow.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
That one is a good one.
I actually like that
Why
one.
would you want to live next to a racist anyway? At least they're telling you right to your face.
I
There's
actually
other
like
things that- Yeah.
See, my thing is
All
that
right.
the rule says, alright, you can't discriminate, but our exemptions pretty much ignore the law completely.
Yes, but it gets better.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. These next 2, I'm going to address them in the same way. So I don't want anybody offended about what I'm about to say. Because I'm going to put them in the same category. It says right here that dwelling units owned by religious organizations may be restricted to people of the same religion if membership in the organization is not restricted on the basis of race, color, religion, race, color, national origin, disability, and family status, right? And then it says, a private club that is not open to the public may restrict the rental or occupancy of lodgings that it owns to its members, as long as the lodgings are not operated commercially. So, let's picture this right here. On this side, we have 24-hour fitness. And yes, I'm comparing religion and private clubs to a fitness. Just give me a second. So 24-hour fitness. Here we have retro fitness.
What? LA Fitness.
That's discrimination. Come on.
Yeah, you just discriminate.
Oh, well.
I don't get up here.
At least I'm open about it. I'm living here, right?
Okay, let me retro in this side.
Okay.
We retro girls.
You're retro girls, so retro and 24-hour there? Fine, so retro fitness,
Fitness.
24-hour fitness, period.
She wants LA.
Well,
24-hour fitness.
so listen to me. Can they come work out here?
No, y'all don't have a pass.
Don't have a pass. They can have a day pass,
Oh, yeah.
but they don't have a membership. Okay? So the comparison that I'm making is religious groups and private clubs can own properties and say that it's only to its members. They own for that with that intent, just like a gym membership is based on membership. In the gym, can I say, "Oh, you're from a different religion, you can't come work out here"? No, they'll close that gym in 2 seconds. Does that make sense? Here's the same thing. It's based on membership. They bought properties intended for the members of their club. Yes? Good. So when you read the question, remember it's based on membership. It's not the religion itself, it's memberships.
So they could say no. Okay, I asked that question later. Let's not. Way
Okay.
behind.
You sure? This is a chapter that I want to make sure you guys understand because you could lose your license real quick.
So, what you trying to say? Like, I just didn't understand with the example either.
No?
No.
Do you go to church?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, what religion?
Christian.
Christian?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Does your Christian church owns property?
Yes.
Do they house people that go to your church?
Do they house?
Like if people that go to your church rent from the church property?
No. I don't know.
Also, they're just making money. Ooh, edit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. All right. So here's the thing. Your church could buy a building because the members cannot afford regular housing. Okay? So they buy a building with a bunch of units, right? And then say, hey, for the members of the church, these units are available. Does that make sense? But they cannot reject based on color. They cannot reject based on national origin. They cannot reject based on anything like that. It's only based on being members. If you're a non-member of this church, okay, then you cannot rent here.
It's just like a golf club.
Well, yeah, that's why I said private clubs as well. Yeah.
But putting it simple so people would understand better, it's like a golf club. If you remember here, you golf here. You don't, then no.
Well, I thought that's what the gym did.
But just putting her something else.
Golf.
She,
You can't go
I
there.
understand what that's saying. Thank you.
That's just messy.
Alright, so my question is, now this applies to a seller who isn't selling through a broker?
Correct. Because if you sell through a broker,
Yeah,
then
it's-
we are bound by these rules.
Yeah. 'cause
So we
it's
cannot
unlawful.
discriminate, period.
Nothing that is disclosed.
Yeah.
Okay? Cool. Next, 1974. Here's the thing, there's more than one 1974, so I cannot tell you to focus on 1974 right now. Okay? 1974, an amendment added sex as a protected class. Right above sex, I want you to write gender. So you remember which type of discrimination it is. Okay?
I was gonna say something, but I'm like, never mind.
Even I avoided this time. Get to clean. All right, 1988. 1988. 2 new classes were added. Those with mental or physical disabilities, including AIDS, and familial status, which is family members under 18 years of age. Okay? Look what it says next. It says, although alcoholics and persons in treatment are considered protected class, drug abusers are not, nor are those who pose a threat to the health and safety of others. Okay? So if somebody that's in recovery, hey, they have a protected status. Somebody that's a drug abuser or could pose a threat to the health and safety of others, like criminal backgrounds, and depending on what it is, right? Then you're entitled to discriminate. Okay? Next, housing intended for older persons is exempt from familial status requirements and we're gonna stop right here, what I just read. Housing intended for older persons is exempt from familial status. Familial status is people under 18. Okay, members of the household are under 18. So housing intended for older persons is divided into two categories. Two classes. Those are 62 or older, and then one that everybody knows, which is the 55 plus. You've heard of those before, right? Senior housing, 55 plus is the most common. But there's senior housing that is strictly for 62 or older. I'm going to explain the difference. In 62 or older, I want you to underline, it says solely occupied by 62 or older. That means that the youngest person in that household must be 62. The youngest person in the household must be 62. Okay? The other one is the 55 plus. It says if 80% of the units are occupied by at least one person, 55 or older, and the housing facility or community publishes and adheres to policies and procedures that demonstrate this intent to be housing for older persons. So the difference between 62 or older and 55 plus. In a 55 plus, only one member of the household must be 55 or older. Okay? So as soon as your spouse, you're always going to put somebody else older. All right, as soon as your spouse reaches the age of 55, you can celebrate because you guys can move in to senior housing. Okay? Only one of you needs to be 55 or older.
And the whole family can move?
Very good question. Very good question. Can the whole family move? What do you consider whole family? What are you talking about? Kids?
Yeah, if I live with my mom, and my kid.
Well, who's the 55 here?
My mom.
Okay. So here comes the answer. They're going to have policies and procedures for that community. As long as they comply with the rules that are put out there by the Housing and Urban Development, right? It should be okay for you to live there as well. But some of them, because this community is intended for older housing, some of them will have policies and procedures that say no minors. Does that make sense? Or some of them will say the minors, let's say the grandkids can visit the grandparents 6 months at a time. So that means all you have to do is ship them back to the parents for a day and then come back for another 6 months and you're clear. Okay? So you got to see what the ship them. FedEx. UPS is more reliable. Sorry. What did you say?
Saying to a friend's house, staying there tonight.
That's what I'm saying.
Party.
That's it. A sleepover. Look, they weren't here. So another 6 months. What I'm trying to say with this is 62 or older is strict. 62 or older. Okay? 55 plus, you got to look at what the policies and procedures are for that community. If they allow minors, you're good. If they don't allow minors, then hey, it's their right to say no. Because when you go to senior housing, you expect to relax, right? I don't know if you've ever been to their parties. It's nothing but relaxing. It's like bingo nights. It's crazy. But, they don't want the kids running around. That's what they talk about relaxing. Like, come here for 5 minutes, but that's it.
Get your mother.
Where's your mother, right? Obviously, I'm joking, right? Don't ever get offended, especially in this chapter. Never get offended with what I say. But very, very important, if you intend to move into senior housing, or if you have a client that intends to move to senior housing, make sure you read the policies and procedures, what they allow, what they don't allow. And again, as long as it complies with housing and urban development, then they are good, they're safe. And there's nothing you can do. Okay? If they say no, can't do anything about it. So, 2 classes, 62 or older, and 55 plus. Remember that. Jones versus Mayer. Jones versus Mayer. Does anybody know this? Have you ever heard of Jones versus Mayer?
No.
What is it?
Famous discrimination case.
It's a famous, or one of the most famous discrimination cases. That's why I'm surprised nobody knows. In almost 4 years teaching this particular course, barely anybody knows about it. Here's the thing. 1866 was created, right? The law was created based on
Sex. Based on race and
Racial
religion.
discrimination.
I mean, yeah.
Civil rights.
Sorry.
Plus say gender, don't say sex, because nobody discriminates against sex. Now, what were we saying before?
It was common.
1866, race and color. Race and color. Okay? Remember that. But then in 1968, they made amendments to the law where they added religion and national origin. But they also added what? Exemptions. Exemptions. Okay? So it said that I can discriminate against race, color, religion, national origin as long as it's my property and I'm renting the other units in my property. Federal law allowed it. So here's what happened. In the same year, 1968, okay, it says right here that Jones, an African American, sued Mayer, so Alfred H. Mayer Company, alleging that Mayer had refused to sell him a home in St. Louis County, Missouri, solely on the basis of race. Now, if there's an exemption, then what's the big deal here, you know? Federal law says I can discriminate, right? So here's what happened. Go to the next page. It says right here that the 1866 Act prohibits all racial discrimination, private or public, in the sale and rental of property. The importance of this decision rests in the fact that while the 1968 federal law, as I was explaining right now, exempts individual homeowners and certain groups, the 1866, the first one, prohibits all racial discrimination without exception. So, despite any exemptions in the 1968 law, it doesn't matter what exemptions they created, an aggrieved person may seek remedy for racial discrimination under the 1866 law against any homeowner, regardless of whether the owner employed a real estate broker and or advertised the property. Look what it says right here in green. Where race is involved, no exceptions apply. So yeah, there's exemptions, but not based on the original law. Okay, so what we're doing here is saying this case came to solidify, came to establish 1866 as the base of discrimination. Like, you can't go around that. If we started with that, and we start already like a couple of years later, which if you guys look at it, it's a couple of years later, right? If you start changing it, then what's the purpose of the law anyway? Does that make sense? I mean, it took thousands of years for them to come up with one law, and then 100 years later they change it? Doesn't make any sense. So that's what this case came to do. Came to put the hammer down and say, hey, this is what it is, period. No discrimination regardless of what you do, if it's race or color. Got it? Yes? Do people follow this?
No, not everyone.
Of course not. How many people know about this? How many knew about this before coming to class? Raise your
I'm
hand.
gonna sue a lot of people.
You knew about it? But did you know about it? Did you know about it?
I know that you could discriminate, but I didn't know the more important dates and stuff.
Well, not the dates themselves. It's the fact that this is here. How many people really knew that they had protection under laws, under federal laws?
Oh, I
nonetheless?
knew that.
Okay, but did you know in detail? Did you know against what?
Not-
You guys understand what I'm saying?
You could basically discriminate against religion because of the laws that you created after. But you can't on the original law.
You can discriminate against religion or national origin,
Yes, exactly.
or gender, or sex,
Or age. Or
family status, or age and all that stuff. Yes.
But you can't do it on race and color.
Correct.
This was the original law. They can't override that.
Absolutely. You guys got
Doesn't
it?
matter how many houses you have.
Doesn't matter
It
how many
doesn't
houses
matter
there.
that you live in that house and you don't want nobody there.
Perfect. 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 Awesome. All right. Equal housing. Don't go out suing anybody because we still have a lot to cover. If you're suing everybody, if you're already thinking about suing, I didn't finish. There's way more for you to sue people on. Okay? There's way more. Just make a list. Oh, I can sue based on this. I can sue based on that. I can sue.
You must have a lot of money.
Yes.
In time.
Equal housing opportunity poster.
Right.
Equal housing opportunity poster. If you guys scroll up in your page, there's a poster there. That's the federal poster. What is the first thing you see there? What stands out the most? The house. And what does it have on the house?
Windows?
Equal sign.
You're funny. An equal sign, because it's fair housing and everybody must be treated equally. Got it? That poster must be displayed at every real estate office. That poster must be displayed if you have like one of those sample apartments or units, the demo units, then that poster must be there as well. When you walk through, you must see those posters about equality, like everybody must be treated the same way. You got it? If that poster is not there, go to the next page. When HUD investigates a broker for discriminatory practices, when HUD investigates a broker for discriminatory practices, it considers failure to display the poster as evidence of discrimination. So if the poster is not there, then you could be a discriminator. Yes.
I could sue them?
You can sue them for not having the poster. It doesn't mean that they are. Okay, let me make something clear. It doesn't mean that they are. There's going to be an investigation. It's just when they come out, they have a checklist. Evidence of discrimination checklist. No poster. Check. They do discriminate. Let's go for the next ones. So as they go down that list, and I'm not saying they come up with a list, but as they go down whatever they feel needs to be investigated, if you check enough boxes, then
Yeah.
you do discriminate. Does that make sense? Yes.
So what about, board of directors? Like, I just came from a property that has a board of directors.
Okay.
So the management company doesn't determine if the person gets approved for the apartment or not, the board of directors do. And they were going based off just how people talk.
Okay.
So that's not legal, right? With the
They
board of
discriminated on how
directors.
people talk, meaning,
Literally how they talk, like,
So your accent would affect.
right, like,
See.
do they sound educated or not, like that.
okay. Unfortunately, we don't have an exemption for education. So as long as they're not disclosing, as long as they're not discriminating based on race, color, religion, national origin, gender, or age, or disabilities, we're good. You talk funny? Sorry.
Oh, you know what
I was even gonna rhyme. I was gonna say, sorry, honey.
So when I had listed like one of the, cause I have a two-family house, when I listed one of the apartments for rent, I had this girl text me, she's like, do you accept Section 8? And I was like, unfortunately, I don't participate with Section 8. She's like, that's discrimination, I'm gonna report you.
Okay, and let me ask you a question before anything else. Did you ever register with Section
I did at one point.
8? Did they come in and see the property?
Yeah, everything was good. It was, I called them back, I'm like, listen, I'm not gonna do it with you, I'm not gonna do this anymore. It was just too much hassle with it, and
Okay.
I came out, you know, I did everything as it was supposed to. She just said that I was just discriminating. I'm like,
Okay, so you have like a letter from Section 8 that says, you're
Yeah.
done,
yeah,
you divorced them.
yeah,
Okay, that's what's important. As long as you have a letter that says your house is not participating in the program, but it was deemed by Section 8 that you're not participating in the program, then it's not discrimination.
yeah.
Because I don't have to jump through hoops to get my house rented. Okay, let's put it like that. I have to accept you if I'm willing to accept, or if I have not, if I have not applied for Section 8 yet. Does this make sense? But if you had somebody there, and then you just spoke with Section 8 and says, hey, it's not working out for me, and they gave you the okay, then no problem.
Oh no, because it was way after. Like she texted me because she wanted to see the apartment, but she asked me, "Do you participate?" I'm like, "No, I don't. Unfortunately." She's like, "Okay, you're discriminating." I'm like, "How am I discriminating? I just said I don't participate. That's it."
Okay, so nothing's gonna happen to you because,
Oh no, I was
Again.
fine. Like I was.
no, but what I'm trying to say is, they're not gonna do anything to you or be able to do anything to you because you do have an agreement with Section 8.
Of course.
If you didn't, then yes, you could get sued. We'll talk about that in a little bit, though, about Section 8. Now, let's go to blockbusting and steering. Do you have any questions before we move forward? Questions? No? All right, cool. So blockbusting, does anybody remember Blockbuster?
Mhm.
What was Blockbuster?
It's a movie rental like place.
You weren't around. What are you talking about?
What?
No, I'm just kidding.
I never
Right.
You guys
Is that discrimination? Is that discrimination against
You
age?
actually had me for a second. I was like,
I had you for a second.
I was like, no way, I don't know what that is.
Like 9
You'd be surprised.
I've been to Blockbuster.
Were you being carried?
Right.
No, I went to my.
I'll trade the baby for a movie.
You're probably gonna go into that when I was a kid.
funny.
I didn't know what it was, so.
See, there you go. How old are you?
I'm 25.
25,
I
right?
think there's only one active Blockbuster still open.
It was the last one.
It said it was a
The last of its
7-Eleven or
kind.
something.
All right,
And people who go there don't want it closed. They actually, it's like actually active.
I would love to still have a Blockbuster around. Anyway, all right, guys. So Blockbuster was around. What was the greatest thing about Blockbuster compared to other movie rental places? Why were they called Blockbuster? It's just it was cheap. No.
Good movie.
I don't know. I
Good
can't
movies.
remember.
Okay. Anybody?
Convenience?
Convenience. Well, the other ones also had convenience because it's the rental.
It was open 24 hours.
Blockbuster?
No,
You said you didn't know.
Yeah.
She's guessing.
Wow. If there was a 24-hour Blockbuster, it would be empty by now. Wiped clean. Anyway.
They're all empty.
Why? What's Blockbuster all about? Why Blockbuster? The name. Well, it's movies, but what kind of movies?
Like the biggest.
The biggest, the latest, all that stuff. They were the ones releasing the movies that came from the movies. So as soon as they came out of the theaters, right? A couple months later, where would you find them?
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster. And everybody would rush, panic peddling. Everybody needs to be there first. Today we have something called Black Friday. You got to be there first, to be the first one going in. That's panic peddling, and you see what happens, right? Right? People stump over each other. It's crazy.
Shooters.
They fight.
You never heard that? No, yeah.
People die.
Walmart, the 3 people got killed. Walmart.
Hey,
Grown-up people fighting children. It was awesome. Anyway,
Oh, my goodness.
what's my point with Blockbuster? Because it really has nothing to do with Blockbuster. It has to be with the term itself. Blockbusting in real estate is creating panic peddling. It's like you're creating this urge for people to move somewhere or out of somewhere. So here it says, blockbusting, also known as panic peddling, means inducing homeowners to sell by making representations regarding the entry or prospective entry of minority persons into the neighborhood. Okay? So you're telling people, hey, your neighborhood's about to change, you better sell now. You've seen this kind of person move in, right? After that one will come another one and another one and another one, and you know what they do to their communities. House prices will go down because they will damage your property. Do me a favor, sell now while you can. I'm creating that urgency, but in the wrong way, based on discrimination, because I'm pointing at a particular group of people and forcing you to sell before they all move in and your house price goes down. Does that make sense? I'm scaring you into selling. So the Blockbuster frightens homeowners into selling and makes a profit by listing the homes or buying them cheaply and selling them at a considerably higher prices to the same minority persons that I scared you from. Right? So I'm going to say, don't get offended, it's just for the example. I'm going to say, hey, the Mexicans are coming, right, to this neighborhood. And then what do? I sell to a Mexican. I took advantage of you. I created that fear in you. And then I sold to the same group that I told you not to,
Well, that's,
you know?
what? They shouldn't be racist against Mexicans.
They shouldn't be against the others. It's okay as long as you don't own any more than 3 Mexicans.
I don't feel bad about this.
No, but this happens a lot,
But you know
and that's
what?
where you see the changes. I'm sorry, that's where you see the changes in communities.
Actually, and also they, white people community, they're higher price. So
Hold
they just go.
Hold on 1 second.
Good.
Sorry. I think it's too late for this.
Yeah.
White first, what anyway?
Yeah, but you are crazy.
I see people park there.
But you gotta move up a little bit.
You're in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So she gotta go to the cliff on the hall to drive.
All right. So pretty soon we're gonna have new direction driving school.
I was saying like, depend where you look and what kind of people live there, the housing is higher,
The value.
the value.
Yeah.
And you go to a white neighborhood and the house are pretty.
Now that's discrimination, now that you're saying white neighborhood.
Yeah.
But it's true, like even the, no,
that's not
what I'm
What
trying to
you're, what
say,
you're doing.
no, what I'm,
No, no,
no,
no.
what I'm trying to say,
That's it.
that, what I'm trying to say.
Can I turn the
is-
camera on you? Because this is gonna be recorded. You're discriminating against white people.
What I'm saying is that the, like, the price, the people who price the house,
Mhm.
or sell the house, because it's a white neighborhood, they overprice that, they don't say it, but it's true.
All right, so let me show you something. It's not about being a white neighborhood, always. Sometimes it is, but it's based on income levels. It's based on the, and we'll talk about this in the next chapter. It's also about here we're jam packed. In those areas, usually there's a house here, and then there's like miles for the next house. Land. So there's security. Here we're jam packed, so there's a higher crime. Over there, low crime. People pay for that. The schools are better there. Here, the schools, not so good. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? The more people you have in a particular area, the more the chances of crime, the more the chances of faulty schools, right? And that drives the price. Commerce, is there commerce? Is there no commerce? Is there a highway that's close by? Is there, you see what I'm trying to say? So there's various factors. It's not just because of the race.
Yeah.
But yes, does it play a big part in this? Unfortunately, it does. You know, I mean, these rules are recent. 1866 was not too long ago. You know, for us, it looks like it was because we're, you know, our ages, right? But compared to the history of this world, 1866 was not too long ago. Okay, I'm going to show you laws that are from, I mean, the 1988 law. That's definitely not too long ago. Against people with disabilities or minors. You see what I'm saying? These are recent things. So it's still changing. Too bad. So it's still changing. That's what I'm trying to say. All right? The world is still changing. We're still adapting. And then, I'm not getting into the political side of it, but then we get to watch politics and TV and how we're separating everybody again.
Yeah.
Right? Because this last presidential, and I'm not saying one candidate was better than another, that's not what I'm trying to get into, is the media started separating again people. So it's like we're going backwards. All right? Do you see what I'm trying to say? So what you're saying, you're kind of right, but you also half wrong. Do you see what I'm trying to say? There's a lot of other factors that give value to neighborhoods. Okay? And you can see here, you're in the middle of Newark, and the house prices are ridiculous. And here's definitely not a white town. You see what I'm trying to say? But they're ridiculous because there's demand for Newark. People want to be in Newark. I don't know why, but people want to be in Newark. You see what I'm saying?
They're building new things, right?
They're building a lot of businesses.
It's closer to New York too, and Green City prices are ridiculous right now in Hoboken, so people
Yep.
are looking towards North now.
Yep, that is true. Good. All right, good. But I'll show you that a little bit more later, okay? The next one is steering. Steering. Do you guys know what steering is? Or ever heard of a steering wheel, for instance?
Yes.
For those of you that need to go back to driving school, you know what a steering wheel is? Where you put your hands?
I just took my driver's test.
You just took your driver's test?
Well, I took it like a year ago, but.
Who parks in the middle of the garage?
I didn't park in the middle of the.
That's what he said.
He's exaggerating, he's discriminating.
Against a white Ford, you see?
Yeah,
You're discriminating against a white
just
Ford.
because this truck was bigger.
Girl, I drive an Altima, you work.
You're probably saying,
I'm
don't
sorry.
go on it, like, that's discrimination.
So, steering. If you guys need to go somewhere, you need to steer in a direction, correct? That's what this is. When we talk about steering, is the channeling of home seekers either to or away from particular areas on the basis of race, religion, country of origin, or other protected class. On these grounds, it is prohibited by the provisions of the Federal Fair Housing Act. Steering is often difficult to detect because the steering tactics can be so subtle that the homeowner is unaware that his or her choices have been limited. And also, steering may be done unintentionally by agents who are not aware of their own subconscious assumptions. So here's what happens. What we do Okay, and sometimes, again, subconscious, we're not doing it on purpose. But I look at you and I assume that you're from a particular race or a particular area, or that you want to be in a particular area based on your race. Does that make sense? All right. So I usually do a little test with my students. Okay. So, Allie, you're gonna be the test subject.
No, please leave me alone.
No. Get up for just a quick second. Get up.
No, please.
Just a quick second. You can do it. Come on. Help me.
No, take somebody else.
Help me. Help. All right. So you can say sit down. I want everybody to look at Allie. Might as well stand up. Everybody look at Allie, and I want you guys to tell me where she's from. Like, just by looking, forget what you've heard or she might have said or mentioned, if you guys heard her mention before. But just by looking, I want you to tell me what's her background, where she's from. Philippines? Okay. What else?
Brazilian, Spanish.
Brazilian, Spanish. Do not say yes. Do not say no. Do not nod. Keep your poker face.
To keep it at like a safe level, I'm just gonna say that she's of Hispanic origin. She's from South America.
This is South America. Oh, Brazil is in South America.
But Brazil is not Hispanic.
Okay, there you go. So Hispanic, sure. Let's go with that. Then you know what? Then you have European, Asian, and so on. That's so like broad.
Yeah.
Russians are Asian,
Trying to
so
stay in the safe zone.
And Indian.
yeah. All right. What else? Look at her. What else? Tell me. You've got Philippines, Mexicans, Brazilian.
Asian.
Asian from where?
From where?
Like Asian from Russia or Asian from China? Or
For her hair and her eyes.
Oh, from India? Is she from India?
No,
What?
like.
Indian?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Indian. What else?
No, I'm not saying she's from India.
You just said it.
No, I'm not saying that.
Don't worry, you won't get sued. This
Oh,
is
no,
consensual.
No,
No,
I say she thought it was from India.
Okay.
Because she don't know that India
No,
belongs
I know. But now we got Indian. What else? I like to have a few more. Come on.
God, please, this is embarrassing.
Okay, Asian, Philippine, Mexican.
We got Mexican already. What else?
Salvadoran.
Peruvian? All right.
Ecuador.
What is it? Egypt? Okay. Maybe. Well, what else?
That's four.
No.
That's six.
Anything else?
Jamaican.
Dominican?
Is there a quota here that we're trying to get to?
I'm trying to get like 10 different ones.
That's what I'm
But don't just throw stuff out there. It's what looking and what you could assume.
Hawaii.
Hawaii? All right. Yeah. Absolutely. Could be.
Pacific Islander.
But
Pacific
Pacific Islander, generalizing.
Samoa.
Samoan. Okay. Portugal. Possibly. You never know.
Okay, now we have enough.
We have enough. We have 10. So here's the thing. By looking, we did not have her speak, right? We did not ask her any question. And we all assumed or presumed different types of places where she could have come from, right? Yes?
said just by their look.
Correct.
Yes.
But that's what I'm trying to say. I'm just confirming that's what we did. This is not a magic trick. It's not like I'm going to pull a rabbit out of the hat. I'm just trying to make a point here. Sometimes we presume that that's where the person is from, and then we also presume or assume that they have to be in the particular area where she's going to be comfortable. Okay?
Oh, we
So-
forgot one.
I'm sorry?
We forgot one.
What did we forget?
Um,
You're about to discriminate, so.
no.
Because we forgot one, there's 200 and something countries, so.
Yeah, but we forgot this one.
Go ahead.
American, Indian American.
Native American?
Yeah.
So you took a second look and you went like, Apache.
No, because I didn't look at her all.
Okay, got it. So, all right,
Okay, where is she from?
here's the thing. Wait, I'm getting there.
She's from Newark.
She's from Newark, there you go, right? So the only person that was right was Ruth. She said Brazilian. But it doesn't matter where she's really from, no offense. What matters is the example. But now that you know she's Brazilian, where do you think she would like to live?
Brazil.
Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic.
Obviously American.
And Newark, because that's what they always say.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's what
All
they
right,
always say.
listen to
That's
this.
what they always
In
say.
Newark, I just said in Newark because that's where
A lot of the Brazilian song.
Do you think that's right?
No.
It's not.
Discriminator.
But realtors, that's what we do. So now we're showing houses to Allie, we're showing houses in the middle of Ferry Street, for instance. Why? Because she's Brazilian. Where else would she go? I mean, forget the other states or towns. Straight to Newark. Are you guys understanding this? That's called steering. We're bringing somebody into a particular area because that's what we feel like. Sometimes we do it on purpose, sometimes subconsciously. Okay? What about if she says, I want to go to Clark? What should you say? If anybody knows.
Run.
Right?
It's like
There's a Portuguese place in Clark too.
it's 90-something%, not minority.
Not minority. It's the white people.
I didn't say that.
It's the white people there. Right. The point is, a lot of realtors, I'm just showing you what we do. I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's wrong. That's up to you and your own mind to decide. But a lot of realtors, what they do is, Clark, I don't think is the best for you. Let me show you these properties. And they try to steer you somewhere else. Okay? If you want to be in Clark, go to Clark, period.
That's not okay.
You're going to suffer, but if you want to, you can. It's your determination.
We were looking at a house in Clinton, right? So we decided to take the day and we went to Clinton.
Okay.
And it was the scariest experience of my life, and I never went back.
You had the windows open?
It was just like I went to their little downtown, and it literally felt like one of those abandoned places. And I was like, I cannot live here. Like I don't care how much land there is. I don't care how beautiful these houses are. It's just, it was like nothing. There was no. I'm so accustomed. Like people say, I want to leave the city, but once you go to a place so rural, it's like I can't do it. It has to be like in between. Like it was
Gotcha.
real.
Half and half. Yeah, I cannot go to just the middle of the woods. I can do that. I love it for like a weekend getaway, but that's it.
To be there, it's like,
So.
So people, the seller do this and they should not.
The sellers?
I mean, the
Agents. I'm talking about us, guys. I'm talking about us and how we should act. We cannot scare, so that was block busting, and this is very, very important. That's why I put the examples here. It's very, very important you guys understand this. We cannot scare people out of their homes because of minority groups moving in, and we cannot scare minority groups out of a particular area or move them into a particular area because of our own assumptions. You got it? I should be able to ask you, where would you like to live?
So I'm allowed,
Without any judgment,
so
period.
So if a buyer tell you, I don't want to live by Hispanic people, are they being racist?
I'm Portuguese. I don't want to live near Portuguese. Is that it? I can.
No, but if I
Excuse me.
Excuse
me.
Me
You like
saying,
little kids.
We were wrong.
I'm so sorry, half Asian. I needed to know the whole thing.
Wait.
you said I was right. I was happy.
Wait. Time out. Now I'm going to pull the big guns. With that being said, where do you guys think I'm from?
Portuguese.
Well, I already said Portuguese, but if you were to look at me, do you think I would be Portuguese?
I think you were American. I would think that you were
Plain white.
Based off first.
Plain white.
Sherman?
See, I knew that you were Portuguese before I met you.
How about from India?
No.
Oh,
No?
it's like you can be from India.
Oh, what happened here?
Your parents Indian.
Oh.
There you go.
Sherman? Go ahead, Bruno.
That's my family right there.
German. German.
All right. So, my uncle, French, and from South Africa, right? And my aunt, I mean, you got the looks right there, right?
What for?
India?
India. That's my cousin, right?
Why
I'm so transparent that you cannot see my Indian inside. But I am Indian. You guys understand what I'm trying to say? You can't go to the background. You were born in Brazil, you're Brazilian. Period. I was born in Portuguese. Period.
Exactly.
My kids, now let me confuse you guys a little bit more. You guys ready?
We just came to the conclusion where
Your kid is Hispanic.
Okay? My kids.
From the same mom?
Oh my God.
These three, yes. These three.
Oh, you see, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my God, look at the little munchkin. I remember when
Now tell me where they're from.
You.
My point is, guys, we're gonna stop right here so we can move forward. My point is, you cannot look at somebody and determine where they're from. We're so mixed that you cannot say today where somebody is really from. You were born in the United States, and that's it. That's where you're from. Because everything else is mixed. Do you understand what I'm saying? All of them were born in America.
Every day somebody tries to figure out where I'm from.
Where are you from?
Like, what people say I'm from or where I'm really from.
Well, he didn't say, oh, where do people say you're from? He said, where are you from?
Figure it out in the next chapter.
Moving forward. It's
well,
fine.
your wife is African American?
Yes. Well, no, she's African.
Oh, okay.
She was not born here. She was born in Africa. Okay? Big difference.
How old is the little one?
18 months now.
This is not the first one we're doing.
Redlining.
Yes, well, thank you.
Redlining. You guys know what redlining is?
No.
No?
Crossing the line.
Crossing a line. Something like that. It's refusing to make mortgage loans or issue insurance policies to specific geographic areas without regard to the economic qualifications of the applicant is known as redlining. Pretty much what I'm saying is, oh, you live in that area? Doesn't matter what income you have, I'm not approving you. Just because of the area that you live. Okay? Now, nowadays, they don't reject you, they just charge higher premiums in your insurance, for instance, right? Or interest in your loans. So you the one that rejects them. So that makes it legal. I cannot say no insurance for you because you live in a particular area.
They just charge me more.
They charge you more, and then you're the one that says no to it. Yeah. It's like when I left Newark, I figured out how much I was getting charged compared to everywhere else. I dropped roughly,
insurance
I think it was like 40%. No, my insurance in the car.
Oh.
It dropped like 40% as soon as I left Newark.
But it's because it's a higher,
Exactly.
Right.
But before they said no,
numbers.
before they said no, now they charge you more.
Oh, so.
Enforcement. I'm sorry? So back in the day, yes, that would be redlining. You wouldn't get approved for it. You live in that area? No. Now it's, hey, it's double the premium, and you're the one that says no. Enforcement. Enforcement. We're still in federal, so enforcement says a person who believes that illegal discrimination has occurred has up to 1 year after the alleged act to file a charge with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or 2 years to bring a federal suit. So I want you guys to underline 2 years to bring a federal suit. 1 year to file a claim with HUD, 2 years to file a federal lawsuit.
1 year.
1 year claim with HUD, 2 years federal lawsuit. On the right-hand side on top, so if HUD investigates, they will have an administrative judge handle the case. And this administrative judge has the authority to issue an injunction. What is an injunction? Is an order to do or stop from doing something. Okay? To do or stop from doing something. In addition to that order, penalties can be imposed ranging from $19,787 for the first violation, $49,467 for a second violation within 5 years, and $98,935 for further violations within 7 years. So that's not much, so we can still discriminate because we make enough money to cover that, right? We should be good. Yes?
No,
No.
no.
You should be good, because I mean, the next ones are worse. Ready?
Yeah, but that's so low.
Ready? If the case is heard in federal court, an injunction, so an order, and actual and punitive damages are possible. Look what it says next. with no dollar limit. So you get an order. Actual damages is what the person actually suffered. And punitive damages are punishment. The judge says, because of what you did, you know what? I feel like $1 million is a good price for you to pay. Or you know what? $2 million, or $3 million, or $4, whatever the judge decides. It's punishment. Punitive damages is punishment. You guys got it? And there's no dollar limit. It's whatever the judge feels like. But it gets better. In addition to the offended parties, the Department of Justice may itself sue anyone who seems to show a pattern of illegal discrimination. Department of Justice will take action on top of everything else you're already going through. They'll take action to see if there's a pattern. If there's a pattern, you're getting sued by them as well. Okay? In all such cases mentioned, the guilty party may be required to pay the other side's legal fees and court costs, which could add up to substantial amounts. So not only do you pay for, get the order, pay for the actual damages, punitive damages, right? You still get hit with pay the other party's attorney and attorney costs, right? And court costs. Next, it says complaints brought under the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Complaints brought under the Civil Rights Act of 1866. And that's regarding what? 1866? Race and color. So if it's based on race and color, these complaints must be taken directly to a federal court. So anything regarding 1866, straight to federal. All others, you can go to HUD. Okay? And the only time limit for action will be the state statute of limitations for torts. Torts are injuries done by one individual to another. And again, there would be no dollar limit on damages.
But now, what if the violating party of this, I guess in this scenario, like, what if they can't pay whatever the limit is?
Well, with every lawsuit, it will stay in your life forever. So you get a judgment, it becomes a lien or a levy of your accounts or salary or anything that you have along the way. So your future is locked. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if there's any payout of any sorts, they'll take a percentage of that or all of it, depending on what it is, to satisfy a judgment that's pending. Got it?
Bankruptcy don't cover that?
So
He said no. You said.
certain cases are not allowed to be dismissed in bankruptcy, especially when it's person to person, and this would be person to person. Commercial cases, like promissory notes, like credit cards, mortgages, car loans, and all that stuff, they were wiped in mortgages, in bankruptcy. But person to person, not going to happen. So very careful. You're stuck for life. What were you saying?
No.
Okay. Threats or active violence. These are okay, so we can move forward, right? I didn't threaten you, Allie. I was just messing. So sentence before last, it says, unlawful actions involving involving threats, coercion, and intimidation are punishable by the appropriate civil action. In such cases, the victim should report the incident immediately to the local police and to the nearest office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Okay? And we're done with federal. Let's go to Jersey real quick. Jersey. I don't agree a lot with New Jersey laws, but this is one that I do agree, and I'm happy that they are the way they are. So it says, New Jersey law against discrimination, originally passed by the state legislature in 1945, and broadened over the years, is one of the strongest laws of its kind. By 1966, it covered housing and public accommodation, as well as the original field, which was employment. Please highlight, underline, put stars, put bubbles, put arrows, whatever you got to put. It says, it's important to note that while federal laws apply to residential housing, New Jersey laws apply to all real property. Remember when I said before when we were federal, it's the selling or leasing of residential property only? Those are the exemptions. Jersey says no. It doesn't matter what kind of real estate it is. You cannot discriminate.
One family, two family, three family, four family.
There's exemptions too, but we get there. But in general, New Jersey is one of the strongest of its kind. Okay? So they're actually worse or better in this case than the federal laws. Okay? So protected classes, we're going to cover in the next page. I want you to go all the way down. There's a table at the bottom. Table 4.1, it says fair housing protected classes. Do you see it? Yes? Okay. This is your cheat sheet. You're going to highlight around, put arrows towards it so you can study it. So this is your cheat sheet for discrimination. So if I ask you what happened in 1866, I want you guys to look at the very first one. Where are the bullet points? Race and color. If I ask you about 1968, where are the bullet points? Great. So everything's covered here, now you know. But I want you to look, because we're starting the state law, right? I want you to look at the last one, all the way at the bottom.
That's all.
That's New Jersey.
Oh, wait, step age.
Except age. But guess what? Age is covered by Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974. That's a federal law. And if it's covered by federal, the state must comply with that as well. So what we're seeing at the bottom is that everything. So what the state did is they enforced the same laws, they just made it stronger. But they still have to enforce everything else. So if age is covered by a federal law, state has to comply with it as well. Good? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, where it says prohibited activities, they're similar to the federal ones, so I'm not going to touch it. We're going to go straight to exceptions. Straight to exceptions. So I told you there's exceptions, right? The only exception to New Jersey law applies to rentals. So at the time of sale, in federal, at the time of sale, you can discriminate. State law says if you're leaving, why are you discriminating against the person that's staying? Makes no sense. You're getting out of there anyway, right? But if you're living there, now you have some type of protection or exemptions. It says it allows rooms, apartments, or flats in a certain type of housing to be restricted to members of one sex, religious organizations, to discriminate on the basis of religion, and here's the difference between federal and state. It says here, owner-occupant to discriminate except for race in the rental of a duplex or up and down two-family dwelling. In federal law, we said 1 to 4 family owner-occupied, it's okay to discriminate, right? State law says 2 family only, whether it's side by side or up and down, but 2 families only. 1 family you cannot rent. 3 or more, it's like an investment. So no, you're not discriminating. You gotta know the difference. Federal law, if you live in your own property and you have 2, 3, 4 units to rent, you can discriminate. State law says 2 family only.
You could discriminate only 2 family.
Correct. So you live in 1 unit, you can discriminate against the person that's going to live in the next unit. State law. That's it. So they narrow it down to
Only if you live there.
that. Only if it's owner-occupant, so underline it. And look at the last sentence, it says, there is never an exception for race, whether or not a broker is involved. There's never an exception for race, whether or not a broker is involved.
You can discriminate about everything from that color.
Race and color, yes. So anything 1866, you got to remember because of Jones versus Mayer. You guys remember that one?
Yeah.
Because of Jones versus Mayer, you cannot discriminate at all if it's something based on 1866 law. And that would be race or color. You guys good so far? Mm-hmm. Next page. I want you to go to where it says blockbusting and record keeping. We actually already covered blockbusting, right? But record keeping. Second sentence there, I want you to highlight. Second sentence, I want you to highlight. It says the commission requires any brokerage soliciting listings from more than 3 homeowners in a block during a single month whether by mail, telephone, or door-to-door canvassing, right, to keep permanent records of the activity for at least a year. So if I go to a single block and I advertise to all of them, it's okay. If I advertise only to a few people there, then the commission wants to know why you skipped the others. Was it because of race? Was it because of religion? National origin? Why did you skip them? Does this make sense? You either advertise to all or you advertise to none. Good. And you got to keep records of your advertisement for at least a year. Poster. You guys remember I talked about poster in federal law? There has to be a poster, that one with a house and the equal sign? Okay. Federal law says the poster must be there. If it's not there, when HUD investigates, right, it's evidence of discrimination. Well, state law is very similar. If the poster's not there, then it's discrimination, and you get fined at least $100. Well, $100 is not a lot, but it depends on the investigator and depends on the attorney general. They can fine you way more than that. Okay? Enforcement. It says complaints under New Jersey law against discrimination. Complaints under New Jersey law against discrimination must be filed with the state attorney general within 180 days after the alleged offense. So you got 6 months to file a complaint with the state attorney general. Do you guys remember how much it was to file a claim with HUD? That's federal. Say 1 year. What about a federal lawsuit? 2 years. Okay, so claims with HUD, 1 year, federal lawsuit, 2 years, state attorney general, 6 months. Good? The last sentence in that paragraph says the director may award reimbursement for medical expenses, awards for pain, suffering, and humiliation, and fines of up to $10,000 for first offense, $25,000 for second offense, and up to $50,000 for subsequent offenses. This right here, I want you to focus on, because there's going to be a document you have to present. I'll show you in a second. A document you have to present to every homeowner that intends to sell their home. And that document shows these penalties. So if the homeowner says, you can show the property to everybody, but I don't want no green people on my land.
No green people?
Yeah,
Yes,
those
aliens.
greens, yeah, aliens, they're crazy. So we don't want green people on the land. You got to tell the homeowner, well, Mr. Homeowner or Mrs. Homeowner, you could get some crazy fines and be responsible for their medical expenses. You know how much it costs in Jersey to get the most basic prescription when somebody's going cuckoo, right? It's a lot of money, and that could be for life. So do you still intend to discriminate?
No.
No. Does that make sense? And potential jail time and all that stuff. Yep. So on the right-hand side on top, sometimes people think they can do whatever they want until you slam them with stuff like this.
Nothing good, you can take it back.
Yep. Notice that listing. With every listing, I told you got to show them something, right? So highlight the first sentence, highlight the last sentence. With every listing, a copy of the Attorney General Memorandum on discrimination must be given to the homeowner. Attorney General Memorandum on discrimination. At the bottom it says, salespersons and brokers must refuse. It's in green. So highlight, underline, put stars, put arrows, put bubbles, whatever you got to put. But you must refuse listings from owners who indicate they intend to violate the law against discrimination. If they say, hey, I don't care, bring me the fines. I never heard of anybody getting fined, so just don't bring green people. Your job is to think about yourself and not about the money. Okay? Because if you say yes to that person, then you're as liable as that person for discrimination.
So I cannot help them sell their house, I have to walk away from it.
You have to walk away.
And make them sign
Unless
that.
you want the liability.
Like, and make them sign that paper.
They don't sign, you just provide it to them.
Okay.
Yep. And if you want to write there, it's page 58. For you guys to see the memorandum. Okay? Next it says state regulation on rentals. State regulation on rentals. It says source of income and children in family. While these two categories are not listed as protected classes in New Jersey law against discrimination, state statutes prohibit refusing to rent because of the would-be tenant's lawful source of income. So this provision, covered only by state and not by federal law, forbids discrimination based on income derived from welfare or other subsidies such as Section 8 housing funds. What we're saying here is, we addressed already briefly before, what we're saying here is if somebody brings a Section 8 voucher, they're as qualified as anybody else. Where their money comes from, as long as it's legal money, and government money, at least to us, is legal, right? So there's no reason for you to say no. And they're the best tenants you're going to have, the government, because they always pay on time. Does that make sense? Yes.
So then why do homeowners say no so much?
Most people is because they're afraid. Because when you hear Section 8, you automatically start painting a horror movie coming out of that one. So they're afraid. Me, I love Section 8. Because even if somebody destroys my unit, at least I always got paid on time, didn't have to chase anybody. And they lose their benefits if they destroy the apartment.
And the government gonna pay you anyway.
Yep, and they go, well, kind of. Kind of.
Yeah. Maybe
Wait,
because they.
finish, sorry.
You have them sign the same documents that they would sign
Mhm.
when we were in a
Plus,
rental property, right?
same rental agreement, plus the documents with Section 8.
Okay,
So you have a contract with Section 8 and with the tenant.
okay.
Actually, it's a website where you go apply when you're low income to buy a house.
You can buy a Section 8 purchase as well,
Yeah.
or low income purchase. You can. There's programs for that. Next, it says state statute also prohibits refusal to rent to families with children under 18 years old. So that was familial status, right? Have you seen ads that say no children?
No.
You never saw ads like that? No children? 3 bedroom, 2 bath, no children allowed?
Yeah.
Pets okay? No, just kidding.
It's okay, no. I'm not
No, I
sure.
haven't.
But they have them all over.
Yeah.
Can they do this?
No.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, depends if they live in a property.
If it's owner occupied. If it's not owner occupied, can they do it? The answer is no. All right, we're getting somewhere. Awesome.
I rented an apartment.
Starts getting easier, right?
I don't think that was, she was pregnant, and then she had a baby, and I was like, crap.
And what happens? What, you were
I
upset?
rented an apartment to someone.
All right, listen up, because the example is coming right now. Say louder.
She was pregnant, and I mean, I guess they were afraid to tell me that she was pregnant,
Okay.
until she couldn't, like, obviously she started showing.
So,
And then,
and what if they told you that she was pregnant? Would you
I
say
never
no?
would have said anything, but I think they didn't tell me on purpose. He would come by himself, and he's like, yeah, I have a girlfriend, and so that he would always come by himself.
Mhm.
I never met the girl until they moved in.
Some people
Okay.
do have a problem with
So-
kids. and-
Exactly.
But I didn't know until she was like, one day I saw her come out, and I'm like, what the heck? She was like probably like full term already, and then the baby was like,
Every time she saw her was face forward.
I was like, what the?
Then one day coming out, it's like, oh.
And maybe it's because, honestly,
She still lives there. I mean, the baby's big already, so.
people when you have kids and they ask you, do you have any children? Especially if they have work floor, like they don't want you to live there.
So we're gonna actually address that right now. Babies. Well, after this bullet point. So this one says,
Maybe.
landlord cannot refuse to rent a 1-bedroom apartment to members of the same sex if the same apartment will be available to members of the opposite sex who are equally qualified. It is illegal to subject a tenant to sexual harassment. Very simple. As long as they can afford, you shouldn't care about what they do behind closed doors. As long as they can afford the rent, period. If they want to be together, be together. If they don't want to be together, doesn't matter. They pay their rent. Does that make sense? You cannot discriminate if they are from the same gender. Next, let me address that real quick. A lease may not provide that it will become null and void on the birth of a child.
At least, you know.
There's people that have leases that say, hey, I'll rent to you, but as soon as one of you decides to have a baby, you got to get out. You guys understand? I'm sorry?
That's not
That's just me.
It is mean, but there's people that do this. And it's illegal in New Jersey for you to do that. I mean, there's ways to get somebody out legally, lawfully, because they have a baby, but you cannot put that provision in the lease, okay? A facility that does not admit pets must permit a guided service dog. A person with AIDS is considered a person with disability under the Jersey laws and is entitled to protection against discrimination in housing. Now, a legal way to get somebody out of that apartment because they had a baby. It says right here, landlords are allowed to enforce health regulations. Health regulations limiting the number of persons allowed for the size of any given apartment. It's a one bedroom, there's two of you and now there's a baby. It's not healthy, it's not safe. Okay, so that's deemed not by us. Municipalities have rules, there's federal, state and federal rules regarding this. So up to 6 months, they might allow the baby to stay. Beyond 6 months, they gotta have their own room. Okay? Unless you're a single mother or father, then they allow a little bit more. But those are rules. And can you discriminate based on income? Of course you can. It's always proper to accept or reject prospective tenants on the basis of their ability to pay,
How they're gonna pay you.
right? And their likelihood of doing so. Credit.
When you're gonna go rent, they ask you how much you make.
But if
Of
you
course.
have a Section 8 property, then if they don't have an income, just so they.
So that's the exception. Because that's income. That's their
Yeah,
income.
there's still, Section 8 is gonna pay you.
Correct, so that's income. Period.
No, I have a
But
question.
here, a lot of people do this and it's okay. You gotta make at least 3 times, or as an example, 3 times what the rental is.
Is everyone?
And I'm thinking to myself, if you make 3 times what the rental is, buy a house,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Right.
It's simple.
Let me, I was gonna ask, and I forgot earlier, maybe people, you think people are scared of Section 8 because they pay less, or they just pay it?
Oh, they don't pay less. In some areas, they pay way more. In South Newark, before everybody started getting paid whatever they're getting paid, I was already getting paid way more.
So
Because it's
basically-
whatever the government says it is, that's what we get paid. I love it. I hate chasing
So
people for
maybe,
money.
you think people just not informed of the benefits they can have with Section 8, that's why they're scared?
No, they're scared of the type of people that will come with it, because they think people on welfare are people that are hoodlums taking advantage of the system. They're drug dealers, they're rapists, they're this, they're that. Oh no, that was another guy's
Okay.
speech. So they're afraid. Period.
Nobody got that.
I do those once in a while. I gotta edit this video. Anyway, terrible. Multiple dwelling and reporting. If you're the owner of developments that have 25 or more units, if you have a building with 25 or more units, you must file an annual report with the State Division of Civil Rights. So I got a building, 25 or more units, and it's located in an Hispanic or predominantly Hispanic area. What do you guys think the composition of my tenants is going to be? Most likely, some type of Hispanic origin. Does that make sense? So the report covers the composition of tenants and the methods of advertising and handling inquiries. Of course, if I'm in that type of area, most likely that's what I'm going to have. But how did I advertise? Did I leave it open for anybody? Or did I advertise specifically to the Hispanic community? Does that make sense? Because if that was my type of advertising, that's illegal. But if I said, hey, you're all welcome. Whoever wants to rent here is okay. No problem.
So if you put an ad up only in Spanish, that would be.
Technically. If you put only in Spanish, what are you trying to attract?
Yeah, only in Spanish.
You have to vote.
Now,
Then you have to do every language.
No, but the
No,
most common
English.
one is English.
now it's the
You're in
concept
America.
of you came to the United States, if that's the number one language, then that's what you're required to do. You guys understand that? So if we go to Puerto Rico, for instance, then the advertisement should be in Spanish, right? No, because you're in America still. English.
Everything is in English and Spanish.
Sorry, I had to mess with you guys with that one. Huh?
Puerto Rico is
Puerto Rico is America.
American territory, it's not state.
They have.
No, but
they
it's
have
American
to do
territory,
this
so they made the language has to be, it's crazy. Anyway,
But that, yeah, that doesn't make no sense, 'cause, come
I'm just messing with you guys with that one.
There's never gonna come to that.
I'm messing with you, so I carry on.
What about if it's in Hawaii?
English.
That's pretty much Asia. I don't know why it's American. Anyway, zoning discrimination. Zoning discrimination. Anybody ever heard of Mount Laurel? Not the town, the lawsuit. The town.
I never heard of the town or the law.
It's okay, you got time. So here's what happened. In 1971, so not too long ago, again, 1971, the lawsuit came to be known as Mount Laurel 1. And this was filed by the NACP against the town of Mount Laurel in New Jersey for illegal discrimination against low-income and moderate-income persons through the use of exclusionary zoning. Exclusionary means I'm excluding you from my area. Okay, now we're going to what Melanie, you were saying before about the white towns, but not the white side of it, but the monetary side of it. Okay, they were excluding people because they were low and moderate income. Okay, they were not high class; they were low class, according to them. Okay, so the court stated that all developing communities have to zone for their fair share of regional needs for low-income and moderate-income families. But did Mount Laurel listen? Did they stop doing what they were doing? Of course not. So in 1975, there was a second lawsuit filed against Mount Laurel. I'm sorry, in 1975 they ruled on that, and then 1983, a second lawsuit was filed against Mount Laurel. The second suit, also filed by NACP, resulted in the courts providing specific guidelines for all developing communities and said that all municipalities have an obligation to provide a range of housing. What I want you guys to pay attention to is that it says developing communities. So if the community does not develop, if they deny any development propositions, do they have to comply with this?
No.
No. But if there's a new development, now they have to see, wait a minute, do we have the percentage needed in this town to meet the fair share of low and moderate income housing? That's why there's a lot of towns that don't change, right? What they used to be years ago, they stay exactly the same. Why? Because the moment they start approving developments, they have to comply with this.
So they have to build, it's like matching, like, okay, I'm building something new, so I gotta build
No, sometimes within the same community. So let's say you have a 100-unit apartment building. 20% of that could be low and moderate income.
Yeah, on
Yeah.
Manhattan, in the ninth building, they have to, like, they rent 5 apartments, depending on how many apartments they have, to low income people.
Yep, that's right.
Section 8.
That's right.
Because I have friends that make way less than me, and they live in a nice house apartment.
Hey, the world is for the
Don't
smart
hate,
people.
right?
Yes, don't hate. You were gonna say?
My brother owns a tiling company and he works in all of these new developments.
Mhm.
And he says like they designed them different, like they use cheaper materials.
Yep.
They use cheaper everything and they
Excuse
put
me.
them in the back of where there isn't a view, where they aren't looking at anything nice and they're just like stored in the back of the
Yep. You go to the corner.
development.
You're in trouble. You go to the corner. In fact, in New York, Manhattan, there's a lawsuit against the building there because they even have separate entrances. You want to go to the luxury area, you got the front door. You want to go to the poor area, you got a side door.
No, that's
And
even,
your access does not mix with their access.
no, that's legal?
No, of course not. There's a lawsuit against them because of that.
That
is the purest form of discrimination.
and then,
Wait, are we back in the 60s and 70s?
no,
Where you sit in that corner and I sit in this
no,
corner?
the reason I asked, because the town that I live, like, I went to an area I have never went, and it was so disgusting. The garbage was all over the place. It was like so messy, and the area that I live is everything clean. It's a person cleaning morning, afternoon, and night, picking up every paper.
Do you live in the white area?
No,
It was just because of your comment, I'm sorry.
no,
I just- Sorry.
no, it's what you said. It's about income, but like.
Oh, so income makes you be dirtier than,
No, what I was saying, like, for this law,
Stop
that you have to rent to people of low income. And I asked, and they told me, oh, yes, people from Section 8, they live on that, they live in their area. That's
Yeah.
where they located. And I was like, oh, so they keep it in the corner, like, where nobody see
Mhm.
this.
It's, forget a building, look at towns. It's the same thing. You're on welfare, you're Section 8, most likely you live in a particular area of that town. You're not in the other one, you're there. Huh?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
And that's not legal.
That's where I live.
If you, no, but I'm saying, if you think of South Newark, you already think Section 8 welfare and all these problems are there. Do you see what I'm saying? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's like that, but that's how the society pushed them to a corner. People that are suffering, they go to those lower cost areas. Let's put it like that. It's totally different.
All
right. Say again?
Like the project.
The
That's what they
projects.
call it, project, yeah, they say.
They don't build the projects in rich towns. Right? Right? All right. HUD and NAR Fair Housing Partnership. We're just going to address this real quick. It's a housing and urban development, so a federal entity got together with NAR, which is the National Association of Realtors, and they created a partnership between them that simply says, we're going to help, like NAR says, National Association of Realtors says, hey, housing and urban development, we're going to help you enforce your rules by training our realtors. Okay? So realtors are not required under the partnership to sign any declaration of adherence to fair housing principles, nor are individual realtors or local boards monitored for performance. But even though you don't have to sign anything, that you will follow this, on the right-hand side on top it says, despite the loose structure of the partnership, penalties for violating fair housing laws are severe and include loss of real estate license. You don't have to pledge anything, you don't have to sign anything, but if you don't do it, if you don't follow the rules, right, you could lose your license. Implication for brokers and salespeople. Here's something I want to touch real quick. It says, to a great extent, the laws place a burden of responsibility for effecting and maintaining fair housing on real estate licensees. Who are the licensees? I said this yesterday, right?
Us.
We are. Anybody that's licensed, that's the broker of record, broker salesperson, and salesperson. We are the licensees. So they put the burden of these laws on us, because we're the ones dealing with the people, right? The laws are clear and widely known. The complainant, it's in green. Important, stars. The complainant.
Do they have the same test or something?
The complainant does not have to prove guilty knowledge or specific intent. Only the fact that discrimination occurred.
Also, they can be like, prove that to me.
Correct.
They cannot.
So
I don't
we
have,
made it
no,
up.
I don't have to bring proof. No, doesn't say no proof. It's, I don't have to bring proof. I just have to say, Heidi, you discriminated against me, so I'm gonna sue you.
And
That's
take
it.
me to court with no proof and we court.
That's it.
Not getting sued.
I'm not saying you're gonna win in court. I'm just saying that, try to prove that you didn't. And now there's investigations. Now they're gonna test you with a bunch of questions and see how you
Can
handle
I
them.
sue them back for like,
You can. Defamation of character, you can. You better be good at it. See, I keep records of everything I do. Most realtors, and I'm saying 99.9% of realtors, they're clumsy. They have no records of anything.
You should
Me,
walk
I know
around
every
and
conversation we have.
How do you keep
I keep
records?
all my messages. He texts them.
I do a lot of text messaging, I do a lot of emails, so whatever we spoke over the phone, I follow up with either text or email, saying, hey, based on our conversation, this is what we went over.
Okay.
Can you record it?
Unless you say, hey, I'm recording this. Okay, so New
Does it
Jersey is
carry
a one
some
party,
form?
so you have to at least mention something. Some states is both parties, that means you need acknowledgement of the other person. We
You
just have to say,
consent
Are
that-
you sure about that? Because from what I heard in New Jersey, you don't need consent. You can give yourself consent, basically.
what do you mean give yourself consent? Hey, I'm gonna record myself?
Well, no, like if you're on the phone with someone, you can give yourself consent. You don't have to mention it to him. So if you're okay with recording the phone call, it's fine.
You start recording your own call and that's it?
Yeah, I record all my phone calls.
Oh, I record mine too.
No, you could legally do it because one person has to give consent, even if it's you.
But the other person has to
So one
know that
party.
you're recording them, right?
You have to be out of
So
state.
it's a one party.
If you're in New Jersey.
New Jersey is a one-party consent state.
Oh,
So I could, but they don't have to know in the other line I'm recording.
One consent.
One party.
Well, if you wanna call me, better, I'm recording
All right. You guys are making me hungry. It's chocolate, it's popcorn, it's.
I'm always
Ah,
eating
Jesus, I'm here talking. It's okay, thank you.
the crumbles.
That's what you give me.
All right, do me a favor. You're gonna go down 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph, just highlight. We already kind of covered this. I cannot send you to a particular area, okay? I have to show you houses where you want to live, not where, you know,
You think it's
we
better.
assume, right? You tell me where you want, I'll take it there. That's pretty much what it says. Okay?
But you could tell me, well, I think you don't, Uncut don't qualify for that area.
No, you doesn't qualify for this type of property
Huh?
because of the values, not the area, the values. Your income never qualifies for the property, not the area.
Yeah,
If somebody says, I want to live in Westfield, but they only qualify for 300,000, let me see if I can find you homes in Westfield for 300,000. I already know the answer is none. But I cannot say, oh, you don't qualify for that area. Because the moment I did that, now that's
so
discrimination.
it's the way you phrase.
Always.
Well,
Speaking of which, advertising is the way you phrase things. Advertising. And this is the last thing we're going to have here. Advertising. Then I'll give you a 5-minute bathroom break. Okay?
Bathroom, not even eating.
So, what? Advertising. There has been much confusion about in the past about what property descriptions are or are not appropriate. Guys, come on. Excuse me. Are and are not appropriate for legal use or legal to use in any advertisement. In an effort to clarify federal regulations regarding real estate advertising, HUD has issued detailed policy guidelines. I want you to mark all of them, the bullet points, but I want you to scroll down to table 4.2. That table is the HUD advertising guidelines cheat sheet. Highlight around it, put arrows,
The bubbles.
bubbles,
You have to do.
stars, whatever you have to do so you go back to it. Since you can't find highlights on your phone, highlight the book. And here goes. If the advertisement is based on race, color, or national origin, the rule is no discriminatory limitation or preference may be expressed. So what's allowed what you're allowed to put on your advertisement is there's a master bedroom or it's a good neighborhood. Simple. What you cannot do is white neighborhood or no French. I don't know what they have against French people, but that's what it was. No French. You cannot do any type of advertisement like that. If it's based on religion, what are you allowed to do? You can say chapel on premises, because if there is one, it's not discriminating, it's there, right? Kosher meals available and Merry Christmas is allowed. What's not allowed is advertising no Muslims, nice Christian family, or near great Catholic school. And I want to ask you something. What's so wrong about saying near great Catholic school?
That's, you're attracting that public, only
Which public?
the Catholics.
The great Catholics or
Yeah.
the Catholics?
The great Catholics.
It's the Catholics. So that's the problem. Okay? The problem is you're doing a specific advertisement to a specific group. Sometimes we do it unintentionally. Hey, it's a Catholic school which happens to have great ratings.
What?
But if you do that, then you're excluding all other religions. And you can get sued because of that. So be very careful with your advertisement. Always fall back to this, which you can find online on HUD guidelines. Okay? But before you do any type of advertisement that involves a particular group of people, right? Make sure you go here and figure out what you can and cannot say. You guys got that?
Private school?
Private school, why not? Right? Near private schools. All right. Next page, we have testing, and this is the last thing you have to highlight. In front of it, I want you to write mystery shoppers. Mystery shoppers. Mystery shoppers. You guys ever heard of mystery shoppers before? What are mystery shoppers?
They're people who come up to you for great customer service, like doesn't answer the correct questions, and then they go back and tell somebody. And then
Okay, so they're gonna rat on you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Usually your employer will hire a company or an individual to come test the service. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Undercover, was it Undercover Boss or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good show.
They go and see their own people.
Yeah.
I mean, don't hire somebody else to do the job. Go see what's happening first. Then you hire somebody else for their opinion, but look with your eyes to see what's happening. Right? So what he does is he disguises himself, right, so nobody recognizes him, and goes into the business and see what's happening. But I can hire somebody to sit right here, just like the real estate commission could hire somebody to sit right here and test me on how I handle the class, if I discriminate or not, for instance. Does that make sense?
You saying that because you just
No?
take my undercover out? You just
Yeah, you're the undercover, I know. I can definitely tell. I had you from the moment you walked in through that door. I knew it was you.
I know that's what you're saying.
Mhm.
Damn it.
See, that's why I record stuff, so nobody can point anything at me. Anyway, so mystery shoppers. The difference between these mystery shoppers and the other ones is that these don't get paid, they're volunteers. That's scarier. The other ones have an incentive, they get paid. These ones have no incentive. That's like a serial killer. It's dangerous. They're doing it just for the fun of it.
Oh my God.
And you being like that creepy, I like, why?
Yeah.
It's people that really like to get their opinion on life.
All right, guys. Quick 5-minute break. Go to your bathroom, do what you gotta do.
I'll get pizza.
You wouldn't pizza.